Hi everyone! Today we're here with Yudi to introduce you to our coral restoration project in Indonesia. Hi Yudi!
Hi.
So this is a project that we've had brewing for some time already, and members who follow us closely probably already know a bit of what's going on, but I think we should start from the beginning. So, Yudi, you've been involved since the start, so maybe you could tell us how we ended up having this project in Indonesia and what was your role in getting the project started?
Thank you, Maya. So, first of all, I met Duarte when he was doing his dive master training in Nusa Lembongan in Bali. I think it was somewhere in 2018. And then at some point there is a chance where Duarte explained me about Mossy Earth, like about how the member system and how they plant plant for reforesting and rewilding
Yeah.
and of stuff. Yeah, so it was like at a glance, like at a glance introductions of what Duarte it's doing and what is Mossy Earth. And then since then I've been following Mossy Earth on Instagram and the YouTube channel. And yeah, they're cool. And yeah, and then it was anyway, the time passed. Like Duarte finished his training in Bali and then he moved traveling again, I guess. And yeah, so and then in 2020 when COVID happened, so I joined these internships about coral restorations in north of Bali. And I did the internship for 6 months there. And then at some points during the I remember that I like the during the coral restorations, and I think that's one thing that I also keen to do apart from diving, guiding, and teaching people scuba diving, because it's also part of it, like a lot of diving, like with the coral
Yeah.
restorations. And yeah, and in the middle of that, like in the middle of during the internships, I happened to message Duarte. That's like our first conversations again after like 2 or 3 years. And then I remember asking Duarte about Mossy Earth and how the Mossy Earth system, because I know it's really good with the memberships and the transparency, like if it could apply to coral restorations as well, instead of like, well, the rewilding, but underwater, like for the
Yeah.
corals. And then Duarte get back to me, and then at that time there was a setup where I should have a call with him, but I missed that call because at that time I was working. So it was like 9 a.m. my time, I guess, something like that. Yeah, anyway, and then continue again back in 2022, I think. 20, yeah, 22, where Duarte called me on the phone, and then we start talking about making this coral restoration project in Indonesia. And then starting March 2023, then we actually have a start of doing the first, like the talk, like having the to plan everything. It's like what needs to be done to make the project happen, and what is the base to do a coral restoration project in Nusa Penida, like in Bali, where I also live. And yeah, so we talk about it, and also the team is joining for the discussions, and yeah, until now in June we finally start after a year passed for the preparations and everything, and then we finally fully start on June this month, like early this month.
Yeah. So, okay, we can jump back to the preparations part because I think that's very interesting. But first, maybe we could talk a bit about the area, because the area where we're doing the coral restoration. So there is a problem, right, that causes the area to need coral restoration. So maybe you could explain that a bit. I mean, the people who have followed us closely, they probably know it a bit already, but still, I think it's very interesting.
So yes, so I live in Nusa Lembongan. Is a smaller island with, and nearby there is a bigger island called Nusa Penida. This island's located in southeast of Bali in Indonesia, and basically the dive sites around Nusa Penida is very beautiful. They're very beautiful, like with a lot of special fish that we can expect to see, like the manta rays and mola mola on its seasons. And in 2010, Nusa Penida became marine protected area to have like a better zonations for where is the part for tourism, where is the part for like fishing, something like that, like the traditional fishings usually nearest to the coast, and then like the other is like a little bit outside, stuff like that. And along the Nusa Penida, the coral is beautiful, but there's some part of it that have a rubble area. Some part of it is also quite big. Like I've been diving in Nusa Penida since 2011, so that's when around the area, the restoration area, it's a lot of seaweed farming as well, like along the north coast of Nusa Penida. So this is also one of the reasons, I guess, like the opening space for the coral for the seaweed farming, but also the historic of dynamite fishing in the area, like a long time ago, before tourism got more happens around the islands. You know, like the more people are coming, the tourism is coming, and also part of it is like a boat anchor, basically, like they're dragging the corals and creating a rubble patch that it's not recover by itself, and over time they will just like they're not recovering by themselves, and they tends to get bigger. And also because the north side of Nusa Penida is a slope area, like the topography is a slope, so these rubbles, they're unstable, and with the big waves keep on coming every day with like with the tides, slowly the rubble is also kind of sliding down on the slope. Like there's a case where there's also like a corals on the slope, and slowly it's got covered by the rubbles a little bit. So that's the reason why we want to have the coral restorations there, because of the rubble area is quite big. Like for our restoration site itself, we are covering 0.9 hectare, but not all is rubble. Some part of it, like on the edges, is still like a healthy corals, but there is also some part of it that is a rubble area. There are 6 rubble areas within the 0.9 hectares.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so that's what we are trying to restore by stabilizing the rubble area, basically, like stabilizing the rubbles, and also by transplanting coral fragments from nearby healthy corals, like the natural broken fragment corals.
Yeah. So the problem with the rubble is that the coral can't grow because it's moving, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. And so, yeah, okay. So that sounds like it's very important then that it actually is stabilized if it keeps, because if we would leave it, it would just keep like growing. I mean, the rubble area, right? So
Yes,
it's,
because
yeah.
also, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go ahead. No, I'm just like, I think it's, I didn't know that it was growing, so I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, like because the rubbles tend to move like a little bit. Imagine like if there is some part of the like a die like a coral fragments that already died, and then they are piling up on the rubble area, and with the waves and also the currents, like the north side of Nusa Penida is have a very strong current, interesting drift diving over there, and they kind of move or scratch the rubble right and left. So that's make it hard for natural recruitment for corals, like coral larvae, when they're planktons, and then they attach one substrate of rubbles, but because it's unstable, they will not survive until they grow.
Yeah.
So that also like the coral fragments when they broken, they end up in the rubbles, the sand, the sedimentations, and then also the rubble itself, they covering the corals, and then they not survive as well, or slowly dying. So
Yeah.
that's why we want to stabilize the substrate first, and then we transplant the coral fragments that is lying around at the bottom, like in the rubble area, or just broken from the nearby healthy corals ecosystems. We pick it up. Sometimes they already start dying, like start bleaching, because half of their body already soak on the sand. And sometimes it's already also like growing with algae. So we pick that coral fragments, we cut the part that's dying, and we leave the part where it's still living, we transplant it to the structures, and then they will give them more survival rates to grow.
Yeah. So the structures that we put in, they are both for like keeping the rubble in place, right? And then also for attaching the fragments of coral that are from that have fallen naturally.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. But so what about since after you started planning this project, you said that was already more than a year ago, right? So what has happened since then?
Yeah.
It's been a very long process to get this project
Yes.
started.
So first of all, we established foundations in Indonesia for the umbrella of these projects, like to actually doing these projects. And then after that, with this foundation set up, then we need to have the permit to actually have doing the activities in the oceans, basically, because we are planting some structure there. So then the Marine Ministry of Indonesia, they require us to have this permit to use the marine space, basically.
Yeah.
So this permit is relatively new, like they started in 2021, and then it's refined again in 2023. So with the coral restorations project, we basically need to have our data first. There is some kind of format that we need to fill, like a proposal, but with the technical informations, like the baseline data of the project sites, and also if it's proper zonations to do coral restorations, and then if there is and how is the conditions in general, like in nearby the islands, like the oceanographic profile, like the currents, the tides, and also the social economic of the people living in the islands, because the activities will or may also to affect their activities, like in the Nusa Penida. So this kind of data that we need to collect to actually draft the proposals and send it to the Marine Ministry. It's a little bit back and forth at that time, because there's an editing that we need to change this, and then at some point in November the whole system changed, so it's not going to be like from email again, that you need to, because the ministry create an applications like on the websites. It's actually very good, like you can self-tracking the progress.
Nice.
But it's still in developing. Yeah, like, so basically after a month of back and forth with the email, we need to redo it again to apply from this website. And then after we actually applied, and then there is some period of time that you need to wait to have the verification data. And then we had a call with all of the stakeholders from the government to actually look at our proposals, how it's going to go, how it's going to affect the surrounding areas. And thankfully, they're all good. The zonation is correct and the data is accepted. So we finally get the permits on 15th of May. We already got accepted on 18th of I think it's March, at the end of March, something like that. That's 4 months after we reapplied. And then we get the invoice because the Marine Space, they also have like the per meter square price, like a retributions actually. Like it makes sense for the ministry, and then after that we had to wait like about a month until we got the actual documents of permits, just in time to start on 1st of June.
Nice. So what about this project site, the marine area? Is it government owned? The I don't know what to call it, not land, but like the area.
The marine protected area is they're also under the ministry, like in the ministries have another department in province, and then there's another department to actually manage the MPA, like in local Nusa Penida area. So the MPA, ever since the MPA is created, they overlook every activities on the surrounding water, like in the MPA area.
Yeah.
So we need to get the recommendations, or more like the MPA give us a letter at some point that says the zonations, like this zonation is actually for education purposes or tourism purposes, something like that. And then with that letters we put it together with the proposals. So that's a supporting document, like from the MBA first, like from the local area. We get a permit, and then we applied it on the bigger department, like to the ministry, up to the ministry. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so far, or until June, that is, it has mostly been like gathering data and all of this paperwork. But now in June, you got to actually start deploying these structures and everything. So maybe you could explain that process a bit. How does that happen, and who is doing all of that?
The team there are 4 divers, including me, and also Chansa, our marine biologist, and 2 other divers also. Actually, Chansa's friends back from university, like they're juniors.
Nice.
So 4 of us starting on the actually we start on the 3rd of June. On the 1st, we are kind of like checking the restoration sites, introduce them, what we're gonna do, have some planning in between, and the structure is already producing a month before, when we finally got the confirmations about the documents, like it's accepted, we got the invoice, then we actually start producing the structures. And after a month, we already have all the structures we need to deploy on June. So we plan to have 600 structures a month deployed.
Wow.
Within and separate within the days, like in the month. So we start on the 3rd, so basically like last week, and we did 25 structures a day. So we did from Monday to Friday continuous dive, and yeah, we start easy. We still kind of try to find our pace, like the 4 of us, how many can we do properly and how many can we push. but also depend on the conditions though, because there is a time window where boats or diving boats or any boats can go out of the islands, stay in the sea, and come back to the to the coastlines. And this timeline usually around 6 hours, 6 or 7 hours before the tides is either too big for the boat to come back or too low that we can actually walk on the on the seafloor, something like that, like very low tide. So within this time window is vary on the depend on the moon phase, like where we are in the month. So when we start, we are very close to new moon. So the wave is kind of big, and there is a drastic high and low tides. So we did 25 structures on the first day, and we completely don't remember time. Is like when we transplanting corals, it feels so zen, like underwater. Like you don't have to move, you just focus on the coral fragments to attach on the structures. And then, and we managed to get all the 25 on that day. And then we come back, actually was low tide, like almost low tide though, like on below knee kind of water. So the boat have to park like a little bit farther.
But you made it at least.
Yeah, we made it.
Barely.
And so it was like that almost for a week. So we know better. On the next day, we come back a little bit faster, where the water is kind of still high.
Yeah, but so will that mean also that the like now the tide is very, very strong, but what about when later in the month? Does that mean that you can stay longer and do more, or how does it work?
Oh yes, actually, like 2 days ago. 2 days ago, because well, with 25 structures, it's kind of okay. We made it and we did it properly, but we want to know how much we can do in a day actually. So we try to brought 35 when the tides, because we check it the day before. Oh, the tides is kind of look okay now, like for tomorrow, because we have larger window. So we brought 35 and we actually also managed that. So it's basically really depend on how the water conditions on the sites is also a factor, like how the currents come and go, to sometimes pushing you to one directions and then change suddenly to different direction, to the opposite directions. And yeah, so with the larger window we can actually bring more structures. But also the other thing is we need to have the coral fragments collected the day before. So we need to plan it like for example, if we have the coral fragments ready on the side, we found that it's faster for us to actually transplanting it on the structures and attaching it to the, because the each structures will be basically attached to one another. So it's a modular structure. Yeah. So yeah.
So the coral fragments, they are from the project site. When you said you collect them the day before, do you collect them at the same time when you go to deploy the structures? You collect them from around that area, right? Or where do you collect them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So imagine there's a straight line and then we start the project area like in the middle. So like the straight line have a and B on the end. So we are in the middle for the restoration side. So sometimes the current is going from A to B, like very strong.
Yeah.
So what we want is we want to drop from the boat a little bit closer to point A, like a little bit further from the restoration side, so we can actually drift back to the restoration side while collecting coral fragments and looking right and left to collect it. We brought a bucket and a basket sometimes. So when it's full of coral fragments, then once we actually drift back to the restoration site, then we can store it there and then we start attaching.
That sounds like so much fun.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
And drift diving can be so fun.
Yeah. And these fragments, again, I mean, you already said it, but again, just to make it clear, it's fragments that have fallen off on their own. So
yes.
So we're giving them a new life, basically.
Yeah. We give them a fighting chance.
Yeah.
So the coral fragments can break by several reasons. One of them is the waves as well, because we are pretty close to the shore and the wave is like forming just maybe like 10 meters from the shore because of the topography. The topography is a bit like a slope in, let's say, 30 to 50, actually it's maybe like more likely 30 meters. 30 meters from the shore, it's starting to deep, to be sloping. So the wave usually happens closer to the shore. And with this, sometimes the wave can hit the corals, like especially the branching corals or the acropora. The branching corals, they could break with the waves like that, like get hit with the waves, or and then it fell down. So the way we collect the fragments is we're gonna look around, and at some point we saw one of the coral fragments just laying there on the rubble area, or just nearby their original colony, basically, like the coral, the healthy coral, the bigger coral, and then nearby there is a one fragment fall off, and I would check if that coral is been long broken for a long time, for example, because sometimes they fell and then they survive. They attach to the substrate beneath it. So I will gently wiggle the base of the fragments to see if it's like attached or not to the ground, you know.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't, then I took it to go to my bucket.
Yeah.
But if not, sometimes when I touch it and then I can feel it, like it's very firm, then I don't do anything about it, because they're already securely attached to the ground, and they survive. So I move on to look for another coral fragment. But sometimes also, like, half of the body is already buried with the sand, and this usually they're more unstable. So if you touched it a little bit, you can see that it's kind of moving like a little bit. So this type of coral fragments, I will pick it up. Usually half the body that buried is already died, but the one that's sticking up, it's still lives. So we move it to the structures for the transplant. Yeah, something like that. I hope you can imagine.
It's very exciting.
How
Yes,
the process.
it sounds so cool. I wish I could do that as well. It sounds like a lot of fun. I don't know how to dive though, so I wouldn't breed that much help. But anyway, what about after they are attached to the structure then? Like, you have the structures down there and you've attached the coral to the structure. What happens then?
Hopefully they will grow and self-attach to the structures, because we use a zip ties to help the coral fragments to attach to the structure, to help them attach. But over time, when they survive the transplant, they will self-attach to the structures. They will grow, like the corals will encrust into the structures. The structures, and over time they will start growing. Like after they have these transitions, usually the coral branching, like Acropora, they are very fast on growing. So after a month, we already can expect that they are self-attached to the structures, and it means that they survive the transplant and they can start growing from there. And after a year, then you can actually see like how's the difference. They usually already self-sustained already. They just keep waiting to grow. On the first or a little bit come back on the first month period, we'd like to brush the surrounding structure area because of the algae, because the transplant coral fragments, they still fragile. When they get covered by the algae, they will eventually die if they're not strong enough. Yeah. So to control the algae populations on the structures, we brush the algae off from the structure, so it's not getting into the coral fragments. And then when they're actually survive the transplant, they will self-attach, and then they will grow.
Okay, so sorry, go on. I'll ask you once you're done.
So on the structures, they will depend on what species of corals. But if it's the branching corals like the Acropora, we can't expect, like, they already start covering the structures already, like one structures. There you go.
Nice. Okay, so that means like in the beginning, after transplanting the corals, we or you will have to go there and like monitor them and also clean the structures. But then after some time, they can like just be left to themselves. Like I imagine we will still be monitoring them, but you don't have to like maintain them in the same way. Like how long do you think you will have to keep brushing the structures and like taking care of the transplanted corals before they can take care of themselves?
It's very depends how's the conditions. Like in Nusa Penida, they're not real there because I think because of a lot of currents, like the water moves, and the algae is not like as invasive. So like with this in Nusa Penida, it's still okay. Like we don't have to like we maintain it like every week and every month, like every 2 weeks, for example, something like that. But also because when we're restoring the sites, we're just diving nearby. So when we on daily basis, when we start putting on new structures, we can also monitor the nearby structures that we put yesterday on the day before. And then if we see that the algae start kind of growing a lot, then we scrub it and scrub them off, cleaned, and after 3 to 6 months, usually they already start growing, like the coral fragments already start growing, and also the coralline algae, they start covering the structures as well. Like this is the type of algae that have coral I'm not sure how to explain it. Hold on. Like the better word to explain it. So some algae can also produce like the calcium carbonate, like the corals, like the substance that makes the reef, basically, like the skeletal reef. So this algae can also encrust it around the structure, so it's covering the structure better, and also easier for natural recruitment of coral larvae to attach, something like that.
Okay, so some algae, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understood it right, some algae is bad for the coral, bad for the restoration, and some is helpful, actually.
Yes,
Yeah?
kind of. Yeah, because there is this one algae that's like a they like to cover like the structures, and then at some point, if we don't maintain it, it will also cover the coral fragments. There's also a type of algae that produced the substance, the similar substance like the corals. So this they will just encrust it on those structures.
But it won't be any problem for the coral that we transplanted.
Yeah, they will
with this type of
yes,
algae.
they won't be any problem for them. Like they will just attach.
That's
and then
great.
they live side by side.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. Yeah, okay, that sounds great. So, so what is the plan now going forward? How, I mean, for the future, you're gonna continue transplanting now for quite some time, but then what?
Yes, so the plan to actually restoring the rubble area that we have in Nusa Penida, like the one that our project site, is between 8 to 1 year, and after that we will keep monitoring them for the growth, and also we have another plan to do another project in east of Lombok, in Gili Kondo. That's the name of the place. So we're starting to have a talk with the local stakeholders, like in the area that usually diving. There's also work closely with the local marine departments in the area, so they know they know their area, and also they know where the rubble area is. We know that they know where the healthy coral area is, and so yeah, so we're trying to have a sort of agreement or arrangements with them, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe within this year we're going to visit them already, or for the second time.
Nice. So if we're gonna start another project, or I don't know if we call it another project, but if we have another site, does that mean that we have to go through the same process of sending in the proposal and all of this that we already did once?
Yes, correct. That's why we, learning from our experience, we want to start early on this one. So
that's smart.
So after we finish the project in Nusa Penida, we would like to continuously progressing on the other parts without having the waiting period. So it can go side by side. So we will go again to East Lombok to take the data that we need to create the proposals and sending to the ministry. And then while we wait, we still have things to do in Nusa Penida. So we finished the project site in here, and then after that, hopefully in the futures, when it's already finished in Nusa Penida, we step on to the different place, the different restoration area.
Nice. Okay. Okay, so now we continue to a question I like to ask in all of these discussions. We already mentioned it a bit. I mean, there was a challenge in the beginning to get the project started. It took quite some time, and there is the challenge of the algae. But what about other challenges? Are there any other risks for this project, or things that might be difficult, that might need or lead to us having to change our plans or anything like that? Any kind of challenges or risks that you can think of for these projects?
Interesting. So Nusa Penida is, because Nusa Penida is already a marine protected area, so we can be sure that our project site is well protected. Like there's no one's gonna suddenly build floating resorts on top of it, for example. So it's
that's good.
so it's within the marine protected area and is protected, and also the corals in Nusa Penida is, in general, they are healthy and actually very resilient on any bleaching events like happens on the early this years. So they are very very resilient. It's just that we have this rubble area that we need to recover, that we do the project there. So in terms of growth, like after the transplants and its growth, I think they'll be rather easy to grow, like compared to, for example, other places that actually completely destroyed without having healthy corals around it, for example. But in Nusa Penida, luckily for us, like these projects is they have, like in general, Nusa Penida have their healthy corals, like they're very resilient on temperature as well, because sometimes during mola mola season, which is August to September, October, the water can be very cold, and then it's become warm again. So I think that's why, like, the scientists believe that this is one of the factors that makes the corals around Nusa Penida is very resilient on changing temperature. And yeah, also actually for the algae it's not so much in this area, so it's really we're lucky to have the project like this. I think the success rate will be higher compared to other places that maybe completely destroyed, for example, like without any healthy coral left, something like that.
So actually this place where our project site is perfect for the corals, right? Except for the rubble. So
yes.
So now that we are building the structures, we're basically eliminating the only problem that has stopped the coral from taking over that site on their own, right?
Yes, correct. Because since it's become marine protected area, there are no like overfishing, for example, in the area, like with the net, like a dragging the net or something like that. And also because the area is a dive site, basically, like it's a very popular also for most of the time people want to see mola mola other than their main dive sites in Crystal Bay. They usually go to Puramas Gading. That's the dive site where our project site is. But they go deeper though, like to 30 meters or so. Last time when Duarte was here diving with us, also we saw mola mola in this area, like in Puramas. So yeah, there's no boat that throwing anchor, because they have a regulation for this, so it's very, very good.
So our coral is safe.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Yeah. Okay, so we had a bit of technical issues, but yeah, so one question that I also like to ask every time is about the future, the dream, the vision for this project. And what it sounds like is that it's very likely to go well. There are not that many challenges or risks that we haven't tackled already. So, but yeah, so how do you envision, let's say in a few years, after these structures have been deployed and the coral has grown, like how do you think this area will be?
I would hope that the area that used to be a rubble area that we restored, it become a very complex coral reef ecosystems that would support biodiversity and create habitat for different kind of marine biota. So, like, for example, even for now, like when we start putting structures on the rubble area, we can see how fish start to live around it already. Like these damselfish, they start off very tiny, like people will call it the damsel domino fish, the black fish, very tiny with 2 little dots. I think that's where the domino names comes from. And they become very territorial with some part of the restorations. So anytime a diver passes, they will just poke their hand with they will just come towards you. I have a video like they are actually approaching from quite a distance and back and forth trying to poke the fins of chansas and coming back at me again, and it's very funny. And also the juvenile fishes, like this yellow box fish that we found first last month, and it stay around the substrate. Like when we doing the transplants on the structures, they will swimming around, minding their own business, eating, trying to hide around the structures. It's very cute. And also these very curious checkerboard wrasse. So it's called checkerboard because the pattern on their body is actually look like a chessboard. I think that's how they got the name. So these wrasses, they eat mollusk and also small, like the crustaceans, something like that. So anytime we pick a fragment and trying to move around with it, like trying to tying it on the structures, like to attach it on the structures, they will swim around our hand, like around my hand, just too curious, like, what can I do? They eat worms. So when we break a dead corals, trying to separate a dead body of corals from the healthy one, sometimes there is a worm coming out of it, and then he will just eat it right off. Like after we break it, and then we. It's very, very interesting, and yeah, like over the week we can see how the rubbles start to have like a rugosity, like have the kind of the up and downs, and like create a hiding area for fish. They start to swim around on top of it, like they look like they're staying around that area. And also the scorpionfish and stonefish, we also found the other day that they are actually hiding under the structures, and they stay around because they don't move much anyway. So they stay around. So I was like, oops, we need to be careful with these guys because they're venomous.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very interesting, like to have it in the area daily and putting new structures every day, and then you see how the changes starting to develop already, like how the fish start to swimming around it, and they start to, you can see the same fish every day, like that that they're actually living in that area already. So yeah, so it's very nice.
Oh, that sounds so exciting. So it's very likely, I guess, that if they're already moving in, they're already being territorial about the site.
Yeah.
So I guess it's very likely that there will be a lot of more life in that area in the future. I can't wait to see it. But what about in terms of climate change then? I know that's maybe a bit of a off topic, but I think it's a thing that people are very interested in. How does it how does it kind of affect or how will it work with the climate change? Is it resilient enough to survive?
Yes. Well, around Nusa Penida, the coral is very resilient with changing temperature. So with climate change, like with the temperature rising, usually the effect on coral is they start to bleach, like when the water got too warm. So luckily, like we have several bleaching events, like a global bleaching events back in early this year, like early 2024 in February and March, I think. There are several waves of bleaching events, but in Nusa Penida they are very resilient. They're not affected, like a little bit, just a little bit of the area, but not like a group, like a bleachings, a big bleachings in the area, like just like one or two. So it's not, I can say, like it's not like, because with the bleaching events, like if it's really hit hard, you can really see like along the corals ecosystem, they will start to die and become white because they flush out the the zooxanthellae, the algae that living symbiotically with the corals. And in Nusa Penida, though, even during these bleaching events, they're not really much changing. So they're very resilient that way. And also with more corals, it will create healthy oceans. So hopefully also that will reduce how it's the effect of climate change.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I think that's a good place to end this discussion. Unless do you have anything else you'd like to add before we end?
I think we pretty much covered it all already. What else?
Yeah.
Nothing I can think of.
Yeah, okay. And as usual, you can find more information in the project page and the management plan. So head to mossier.earth for that. And of course, there will also be a video. So you'll learn even more from there. And if you're watching this in the account, remember to comment if you have any questions or anything. And we will try to reply to your questions there as well. So I think that was everything. Thank you, Yudi.
Thank you, Maya.
And thank you, everyone. Yeah, and until next time. Bye.
Bye.